10 terrible years later. Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest of them all? Evil Queen, Snow White. Chapter 1. This is the story of a wicked fairy. It has to be a dream, Mal told herself. This couldn't be real. She was sitting by the edge of a beautiful lake on the stone floor of an ancient temple ruin, eating the most luxurious strawberry. The forest all around her was lush and green, and the sound of the water rushing at her feet was soothing and peaceful. Even the very air all around her was sweet and fresh. "Where am I?" she asked aloud, reaching for a plump grape from the gorgeous picnic set before her. "Why, you've been in Oradon for days now, and this is the Enchanted Lake," answered the boy seated next to her. She hadn't noticed him until he spoke, but now that she had noticed, she wished she hadn't. The boy, was the worst part of all this, whatever this was. Tall, with tousled honey-brown hair, and painfully handsome with the kind of smile that melted hearts and made all the girls swoon. But Mal wasn't like all the girls, and she was starting to feel panicked, like she was trapped here somehow. In Oradon, of all places, and that it might not be a dream. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Are you some kind of prince or something?" She looked aghast, askance at his fine blue shirt embroidered with a small golden crest. "You know who I am," the boy said. "I'm your friend." Mal instantly relieved. "Then this is a dream," she said with a crafty smile, "because I have no friends." His face fell, but before he could answer, a voice boomed through the peaceful vista, darkening the skies and sending the water raging over the rocks. "Fools! Idiots! Morons!" it thundered. Mal awoke with a start. Her mother was yelling at her subjects from the balcony again. Maleficent ran the Isle of the Lost the way she did everything, with fear and loathing, not to mention a healthy supply of minions. Mal was used to the shouting, but it made for a seriously rude awakening. Her heart was still pounding from her nightmare as she kicked off the purple satin covers. What on earth was she doing dreaming of Oradon? What kind of dark magic had sent a handsome prince to speak to her in her sleep? Mal shook her head and shuddered, trying to blink away the horrid vision of his dimpled smile, and was comforted by the familiar sound of fearful villagers begging Maleficent to take pity on them. She looked around her room, relieved to find she was right where she should be, in her huge, squeaky, wrought-iron bed with its gargoyles on each bedpost, and velvet canopy that sagged so low it threatened to fall on top of her. It was always gloomy in Mal's room, just as it was always gray and overcast on the island. Her mother's voice boomed from the balcony, and the floor of her bedroom rattled, causing her violet lacquered chest of drawers to suddenly spring open, disgorging its purple contents on the floor. When Mal decided on a color scheme, she stuck to it, and she had been drawn to the layers of gothic richness in the purple continuum. It was the color of mystery and magic, moody and dark. While not being as commonplace in popular Vinswear as black, purple was the new black as far as Mal was concerned. She crossed the room past her grand, uneven armoire that prominently displayed all of her freshly shoplifted baubles, trinkets of cut glass and paste, shiny metallic scarves with trailing strands, mismatched gloves, and a variety of empty perfume bottles. Pushing the heavy curtains aside from her window, she could see the whole island in all its dreariness. Home, freak home. The Isle of the Lost was not a very large island. Some would say it was, but a speck of a blight on the landscape, certainly more brown than green, with a collection of tin-roofed and haphazardly constructed shanties and tenements built on top of one another and more or less threatening to collapse at any moment. Mal looked down at this sore eyesore of a slum from the tallest building in town, a formerly grand palace with soaring tower spires that was now the shabby, rundown, paint-chipped location of the one and only bargain castle, where slightly used enchantress robes were stocked in every color and slightly lopsided witches' hats were always 50% off. It was also the home of some not so slightly bad fairies. Mal changed out of her pajamas, pulling on an artfully constructed purple biker jacket with a dash of pink on one arm and green on the other, and a pair of torn jeans the color of dried plums. She carefully put on her fingerless gloves and laced up her battered combat boots. She avoided glancing at the mirror, but if she had, she would have seen a small, pretty girl with an evil glint in her piercing green eyes and a pale, almost translucent complexion. People always remarked how much she looked like her mother, usually just before they ran screaming the other way. Mal relished their fear, even sought it. She combed her lilac locks with the back of her hand and picked up her sketchbook, stuffing it into her backpack along with the spray paint cans she always carried with her. This town wasn't going to graffiti itself, was it? In a perfectly magical world, it would, but that wasn't what she was dealing with. Since the kitchen cupboards were bare as usual, with nothing in the fridge but glass jars full of eyeballs and all sorts of moldy liquids of dubious provenance, all part of Maleficent's ongoing efforts to whip up potions and conjure spells like she used to. Mal headed to the slop shop across the street for her daily breakfast. She studied the choices on the menu: black like your soul coffee, sour milk latte, crusty barley oatmeal with a choice of mealy apple or mushy banana, and stale mixed cereal, dry or wet. There were never many options. The food, or scraps more like it, came from Ordon. Whatever wasn't good enough for those snobs got sent over to the island. Isle of the Lost? More like Isle of the Leftovers. Nobody minded too much, though. Cream and sugar, fresh bread, and perfect pieces of fruit made people soft. Mal and the other banished villains preferred to be brittle and hard, inside and out. "What do you want?" a surly goblin asked, demanding her order. In the past, the disgusting things had been foot soldiers in her mother's dark army, ruthlessly dispatched across the land to find a hidden princess. But now their tasks were reduced to serving up coffee as bitter as their hearts, in tall, grande, and venti sizes. The only amusement they had left was to ruthlessly misspell each customer's name. Written with marker on the side of the cup, the joke was on the goblins, since hardly anyone could read Goblin, but that never seemed to make it any difference. They kept blaming their imprisonment on the Isle on their allegiance to Maleficent, and it was common knowledge that they kept petitioning King Beast for amnesty, using their flimsy familial ties to the dwarfs as proof they didn't belong here. "The usual." "And make it snappy," said Mal, drumming her fingers on the counter. "Room for a month-old milk? Do I look like I want curds? Give me the strongest, blackest coffee you've got. What is this, Ordon?" It was like he'd seen her dreams, and the thought made her ill. The runty creature grunted, wriggling the boil on his nose, and pushed a dark, murky cup towards her. She grabbed it and ran out the door without pain. "You little brat! I'll boil you in the coffee pot next time!" the goblin shrieked. She cackled. "Not if you can't catch me first!" The goblins never learned. They had never found Princess Aurora either. But then again, the dimwits had been looking for a baby for 18 years. No wonder Maleficent was always frustrated. It was so hard to find good help these days. Mal continued on her way, stopping to smirk at the poster of King Beast admonishing the citizens of the island to be good, because it's good for you, with that silly yellow crown on his head and that big grin on his face. It was positively nauseating and more than a little haunting. At least to Mal. Maybe the Oradon propaganda was getting to her head. Maybe that's why she had dreamed she was frolicking in some sort of enchanted lake last night with some pretentious prince. The thought made her shudder again. She took a gulp of her sculping strong coffee. It tasted like mud. Perfect. In any event, she had to do something about this blister on the wall. Mal took out her paint cans and sprayed a mustache and goatee on the king's face, and crossed out his ridiculous message. King Beast was the one who had locked them all up on the island, after all. That hypocrite. She had a few messages of her own for him, and they all involved revenge. This was the Isle of the Lost. Evil lived, breathed, and ruled the island, and King Beast and his sickly sweet billboards cajoling the former villains of the world to do good had no place in it. Who wanted to make lemonade from lemons when you could make perfectly good lemon grenades? Next to the poster, she sprayed a thin, black outline of a horned head with a spread cape. Above Maleficent's outline, she scrawled, "Evil lives," in bright green paint in the color of goblin slime. Not bad. Better. And that was much better.